So, Danny, are you ready to do this K for Karaoke track?
That's not my name. I will pretend you didn't say that.
What?
Look, okay, if you're ignorant to this, I totally understand.
Whoa.
That is not my name anymore. I am not Danny.
Really?
Yeah. I'm not even looking at you. If you want to address me by my name.
Dr. Worm, are you ready to do the episode?
That's not my name either.
They call me Dr. Worm. Good morning, how are you? I'm Dr. Worm. I'm interested in things. I'm not a real doctor, but I am a real worm. I am an actual worm. I live like a worm.
Hello, everyone, and welcome
To Sadie Hawkins' pod.
Sadie Hawkins' pod. Welcome to the very first K for Karaoke episode.
Yes.
Yes. So
This is
it's a long time coming.
Yeah.
It's the album we've literally avoided because we never think of it.
Right.
And then early in the podcast, like maybe a month in, we still hadn't started our Patreon yet. And Jessica was like, maybe we'll just do K for Karaoke as Patreon episodes. And that's what we're mostly going to do.
Yeah.
So most of K for Karaoke is going to be only a Patreon, but we've picked a couple of songs for various reasons that will be regular episodes that we'll cover.
Yeah, so this is like a somewhat auspicious occasion because not only is it our first K for Karaoke episode, but we're having a guest for the first time
That's
ever.
Right. Yeah. This is a double. Well, it's a double crossover episode. It's like how the CW does their crossovers.
Right.
First, you'll hear on our show, Greg from This Might Be a Podcast, which is a They Might Be Giants song by song podcast, is going to join us for the second half of the episode, and then you'll be able to go over to his show and hear us on the entirety of an episode of his show. There was no like perfect matching of two songs between the two, because makes sense. Here's Relient K covering They Might Be Giants song Dr. Worm. We haven't even mentioned that yet. We haven't mentioned the song we're doing, but we're doing Dr. Worm from K for Karaoke, originally by They Might Be Giants. So that makes perfect sense that Greg's going to be on our podcast. But then over at his podcast, I'm like, there's not really one song I could figure out. Bless you, April. There's not really one song I could figure out on his list that was like, oh, this makes sense as Relient K.
Right.
So I just picked a random song that I loved called For Science.
It's good
and
stuff.
You can go hear that episode, yeah.
Yeah.
So the way we're going to do K for Karaoke is a little different than how we do our standard episodes. So in general, and this is what you can expect over on Patreon when you hear us do future K for Karaoke tracks, but instead of actually doing like early research, instead of, working on the episode before we
we're doing it live on the show.
Yeah, well, that's how we're going to do it. So
not because we're lazy at all, but because it's more fun that way.
It's more fun that way, but also like bless you, April. The majority of a quarter to half of each podcast when we do a proper Relient K song is talking about covers and fan stuff, with the exception maybe of last week. This might be 2 weeks in the future, but the exception of Be Rad.
Right.
Whenever we did that, whenever you heard that, where there were no covers, no anything, we can't really do covers. I mean, technically we could just go look for other people doing covers of the K for Karaoke songs. And there are occasionally like guitar covers and things like that of people doing the specific Relient K version.
But with a song like this, like Dr. Worm, it's very, very close to the original.
Yeah.
They don't mix up a lot of the instrumentation. It's like the chorus is a little like more rockin'.
Yeah.
It's a little harder of an edge. But for the most part, it's a pretty straightforward sort of cover.
So this is a regular episode, technically, even though we're doing K for Karaoke, or K for Karaoke style. So there's no voicemails, because we're recording this the day after we did Be Rad.
Yes.
But this is going to come out 2 weeks after Be Rad. No voicemails, no emails. But today, so for top of the show business, all I'll mention is today I was posting like the follow-up tweet stuff for Be Rad, and I talked about on Twitter our quiz that we found. This is 2 weeks in the past now.
I was going to say, should we not just save this for next week, which is for the band? I mean, last week.
This is the first time we've done this. It's the first time we've recorded out of order. The first time we've had a guest. The first time we've done For Karaoke. This is all...
We are killing it.
Virgin ground. Is that the phrase I should use? So never mind. I'll talk about that next week when we talked about everyone's reactions.
You've already heard about that.
Well, so we talked about that last week.
So I was listening to For Karaoke earlier, and like you said, this is not an album that we necessarily think to listen to. And
we don't own a physical copy.
No.
I think we own one of the For Karaoke related 7 inches.
We do, I think.
Yeah, but we don't own a physical copy of the full album.
So a couple different albums for me had sort of passed me by at the time. Like we've talked about how 5 Score passed us by just like a little bit. We knew the singles, and Forget Not Slow Down also passed me by. And now like Forget Not Slow Down is my go-to Relient K album usually. For Karaoke just has not become that yet. So I was listening to it today and I realized that for the most part, there's really only 2 songs on here that I seek out the originals of.
Okay.
The Inspiration is absolutely a go-to jam. I love Yacht Rock. That is definitely Yacht Rock. We can argue about whether Africa by Toto is or is not Yacht Rock. I personally don't classify it as Yacht Rock, but it's on every Yacht Rock playlist. Right. Anyways. And the other that I would listen to is Everybody Wants to Rule the World. But if, like, say, Africa or Girls Just Want to Have Fun came on, I wouldn't turn them off. But those are sort of the songs that I'm more...
You wouldn't kick it out of bed for eating crackers?
No. So I think it's also just the fact that they are covers, but they're not necessarily songs that I would seek out per se. That also kind of keeps me from coming back to it. Unlike all of the From the Screen to Your Stereos by Newfound Glory. Those are like absolute jams. Like those are that, and all the Me First and the Gimme Gimme albums are like absolute go-tos for me when I want to listen to like pop punk covers. I love pop punk covers. And From the Screen to Your Stereo. Oh, David Kesh actually let me know on Instagram that there was a newer one from last year. There's From the Screen to Your Stereo Part 3, which is pretty awesome. So by Newfound Glory, if you're into that sort of thing. Yeah. What were we talking about? Dr. Worm.
We're talking about the album in general because we haven't talked about For Karaoke
That's
yet.
right.
But yeah, we've never owned a physical copy. And this album was released in pretty much the same manner as the Christmas album. If you recall, the Christmas album starts in 2003 with Deck the Hall, Bruise Your Hands. And then in 2007 or 8, I don't remember now, 2008 I think, we'll just say 8, they put the full-length Christmas album together by taking all of those Christmas EP songs and putting them together and recording some new songs. That's exactly how For Karaoke is released, because originally it was this EP with the panda bear on the cover. And that was... I'm doing this research live.
There's a part 1 and a part 2.
Oh.
And then they put it all together with that album that you see with the like noodles in the box.
Yeah, which is the more...
But there's 2 different ones, both that have the panda art on them.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure at least they are on streaming.
At least maybe digitally?
Yeah.
Well, I'm just looking at Discogs. I guess they were all released in 2011. But yeah, it looks like there was a CD of the EP for K is for Karaoke. And that has the blue cover with the panda. This is all stuff we're figuring out right now. This is equivalent to when we were like the first time we did what song from Bird and the B-Sides? The first time we did a Bird and the B-Sides track.
Oh yeah.
And we had Where Do I Go From Here? Where do I go? Where do I go? Is the name of the song. We did the research live trying to figure out, because we had never actually like understood the release history or that whole double album on one disc thing, and we still called it 2 discs forever.
Right.
So this is another blind spot in my Relient K fandom, is that I don't really understand the release history of this, because first there's the EP with the panda bear, and you're right, I remember the karaoke EP part 2, but I'm not seeing it on Discogs, so I wonder if that was a digital only. And then they released the CD with the with the noodles and the drumsticks are like chopsticks. Is that a little racist? What do you think of that? It's not racist. I'm kidding. It's noodles. It's like ramen noodles in a bucket, but instead of chopsticks, there are drumsticks.
I get it. It's good stuff.
Well, let's see. Dr. Worm is not on the original EP. So this is just on the CD.
Okay.
We're going to have to buy a copy of this. And, you know, when we started this podcast, we also didn't have a physical copy of Forget and Not Slow Down.
Yeah.
So this is all stuff we need to figure out.
I'm looking through the personnel because I was trying to figure out if it was Dave or Ethan, and it's Ethan because this came out in 2011.
Right.
Yeah. And there's an additional guitarist listed on here, Justin York.
Okay. Brother of Tom York from Radiohead.
I don't know.
Your silence is deafening.
Sorry,
No,
I was reading.
I'm kidding. So what are you reading?
Oh, Paramore. The guy from Paramore.
There was the drummer from Paramore. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. I learned that the drummer from Paramore was a drummer after Ethan. No. Yeah. Was a drummer from between when Ethan left the band and when Dave came back. They had their touring drummer was the guy from Paramore.
Right. So Justin York is a touring member.
Okay.
Of Paramore. For a band with aren't there only 3 people in that band? How do they go through so many different people?
Which band, Paramore?
Yeah.
Well, there's only 3 people, but I don't think all of the sounds, especially in their later albums, are just by 3 people. It's kind of like, for instance, They Might Be Giants. They Might Be Giants. They Might Be Giants started as just 2 guys. And then they had all those albums, the first 4 or 5, the first 5 albums or so. I definitely know this, but I just can't quantify it right now.
I can't wait for you and our guest later to talk shop about They Might Be Giants while I just sit here quietly
in the corner. That's how our appearance on his show went.
No, he was very good because he kept trying to engage me, and I'm just like, I don't know.
Right. Like he even I was basically trying to save Jessica by answering questions for her, not trying to talk for her, not trying to mansplain.
Right.
But then
I legit know nothing about They Might Be Giants.
I wasn't, I'm sure anyone who would hear that would be like, oh, this husband just keeps speaking for his wife. I knew I was trying to save you from your anxieties, but Greg was like, I'm asking her, and she's like, oh.
It's so funny. Okay, so yes, exactly. Danny does this to save my anxieties. He also, and sometimes we do get looks from waitstaff, but in restaurants, Danny will order for me. He will ask me what I want and order for me. I'm setting the women's movement back so many years here, but it literally is because I have a little bit of I'm very shy and have a little anxiety sometimes ordering meals. And so Danny will order for me.
Right.
And I love that. It's a thing I want to happen. But he will also take over sometimes in a social situation if he knows that I'm feeling a little anxious that day.
And I'm the same way, but I guess
exactly.
I guess when it's time to step up and be a man, then I'm like
Are you waving goodbye to Peter Pan? It's time to be a man. Danny is looking around wait,
wait,
maybe.
I get it. You're referencing that Blink-182 song, What's My Age Again?
So this is actually going to shock you, Danny, but I prefer, you know what? No, wait. Should we talk about They Might Be Giants in general, or are we going to wait and do that with Greg later?
We're going to do some of our preliminary... This is all new territory for us, but I figured we'd just talk what we felt like talking.
Okay.
And then we can repeat those points to him and let him say what he wants in
Because we already went over a little bit of this on his podcast.
But yeah, tell us, remind it, because we won't talk about that with him again. Talk about now that you don't have the anxiety of a third person, tell everyone your history of They Might Be Giants.
So I was just going to say that Danny has always been a big They Might Be Giants fan, and he introduced me to the band.
Don't speak for me. Just kidding.
He introduced me to the band, I think,
early in our relationship.
Yeah, pretty early in our
relationship. There were a lot of bands that I showed to you early on, like Five Iron Frenzy and MXPX and the Aquabats and Like
Big D.
Big D. Big D is one you took to right away.
Yeah.
Fire and Frenzy, Aquabats, those took you many years to actually get into.
Yeah.
They Might Be Giants, you've never actually fully gotten into. So, but yeah, I just spoiler warning, but.
So yeah, I understand. Like, I don't think I actually mentioned this on They Might Be a Podcast, but it was something you and I were talking about where I was like, They Might Be Giants is like quirk rock. It is a very quirky band. Mm-hmm. It's just not my particular quirk.
Right.
But I can totally see how a band like They Might Be Giants could be influential to Relient K.
Right.
Because Relient K is also a quirky band. They're just my kind of quirky band.
Right.
So that's the thing that I was thinking about earlier when I was listening to it. I was like, oh yeah, you can definitely tell, especially with like those first 3 albums, how They Might Be Giants could have been an influence on Relient K.
I mean, a song like Sadie Hawkins' Dance, it's not a one-to-one thing. It's not like They Might Be Giants absolutely would have written this song, but you can see how someone influenced, because They Might Be Giants have like these sort of high concept lyrical ideas, even if it's songs they write or if it's songs that they decide to cover that then people just assume it's their songs. Like Istanbul, Not Constantinople is actually a cover, but people associate it now only with They Might Be Giants. They have all these sort of high concept ideas that put these fun thoughts and visuals into your mind, and Relient K have a bunch of songs like that too. Even a song like Marilyn Manson Ate My Girlfriend.
Yeah.
I don't think... I mean, there might be other band. Obviously, the sort of Christian punk influence of that theme is clear. I think, especially as we've gotten into more of the demo songs, and this is not something I've talked about with the demo, but I'm starting to see like Matt Thiessen was like, and maybe they'd admit this, but it feels like in the early songs, like on the demo and the first 2 albums, they were like writing like, this is a Christian pop punk song, you know what I mean?
Right.
Whereas say a band like MXPX maybe wrote a little bit more personally, and they would just happen to be Christian things. It seems like some of the songs on All Work and No Play are like deliberately trying to be like, we are a Christian pop punk band and we write Christian lyrics, right? And then it took them a little bit longer to, by the 3rd album, by 3 lefts, get into 2 lefts, by 2 lefts, get into like not being on that thing so much, you know what I mean? Point being, okay, so Marilyn Manson Ate My Girlfriend has that bent. It has that bent of, this is a Christian pop rock song for Christian kids only, but it also has a very clear They Might Be Giants kind of influence, just being so bizarre and high concept.
Yeah.
And
this is something that I saw with Local Construction, but you did not, where I was like, oh, this song feels a little They Might Be Giants.
Right. It's always hard for me to admit if a band or a song is influenced by certain other bands. Like one time I saw this article, maybe it was Alternative Press, it was only a couple years ago, and they're like, albums that wouldn't exist without Green Day's Dookie. And then it listed all of these bands that were like majorly influenced by Green Day's Dookie. And it's like, that's an amazing album. I love that album. But then every artist and album on the list, I was like, that doesn't, to me, I was like, that doesn't sound like Green Day. Like, I don't get it. Like, I don't.
Well, because you take what you want from that and interpret it in your own way.
Yeah.
I like this song. So what I was going to say originally was that this is going to shock you.
Right.
But I actually prefer the vocals in the original to Thiessen's vocals. And one of the things that I don't particularly care for in They Might Be Giants are the vocals. I'm not sure which John.
That's John Linnell singing.
Okay.
So I was getting towards this before. Did you have more to say about that?
Just that I actually prefer the original vocals. The music is kind of
very interesting, very cool.
Yeah, the music kind of goes hand in hand. Like it's such a clean, cover,
right?
That it's not very transformative,
right?
So I like it both. I like the little extra rocking that they put into it, over the They Might Be Giants version.
The cover, I guess we haven't talked about the music yet, but the cover feels like a repressed pop punk attempt at the song. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like they want to go for it and do the Relient K thing to the song, because it's like a little bigger. It's a little bit more electric than the actual song. and it feels like they're just holding back from going faster, going more pop rock with it. You know what I mean? It feels like they're a pop punk bubble in the Dr. Worm box.
Right.
And they're not letting it feels like the Relient K version kind of isn't fully going for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Because it is a very straight ahead cover. It's pretty much the exact same song, but just a little bit more hard. Like they could have done a little bit, like the way that Relient K redoes Africa is perfect. And that's another song that I think we're going to do in front of the paywall. I think we're going to do, maybe we're going to do Africa and
Surf
Wax America in front of the paywall, and the rest for Patreon. But when they do that with Africa, like they don't transform the song Africa, they just add to it and boost it up to a slightly higher Relient K level. Way better than Weezer would do 9 years later.
Yeah.
Like that's why I want to do it in front of the paywall. I want to compare.
Because it absolutely is so much better than Weezer's version.
I kind of want to do the other Weezer songs. Because they're both essentially tangentially, well, one's a Weezer song and one's tangentially. We'll have to talk about Weezer in both the other free K for Karaoke episodes. But Relient K elevates Africa with this thing where they take the song, they don't seem to really change the bones of the song, but they add this extra form to the outside that just kind of boosts it up. They tried a similar thing with Dr. Worm, where they take the same bones of the song, don't change those, just kind of like add a little extra flavor on top with the instrumentation, but don't really change it. And I don't think it worked as well. I like it. I really do like Relient K's version of the song. But yeah, I still prefer the They Might Be Giants version. And that's my 2 cents. That's the segment on this show we call Danny's 2 cents. So
I feel like you've tried to sell that segment in the past. And...
yeah. So I was saying before that They Might Be Giants, for anyone who doesn't know, was originally just 2 guys. And we'll talk about this more with our guest. But They Might Be Giants was originally 2 guys in New York in the 80s who started making like what you could kind of call like art punk, but with, by themselves, just 2 of them with drum machines, with like keyboards. It's just 2 guys, but they made these amazing sounds that when I discovered They Might Be Giants, I had no understanding that it was just 2 guys. I knew the CD covers and the artwork would show 2 guys, but I assumed like, oh, those are the personalities. There must be a full band behind them. Like I understood if you're Prince, right? You're called Prince and you just show Prince on the cover, but Prince has the revolution. He has a whole band behind him. I assumed it was the same way. I assumed They Might Be Giants was 2 guys who wrote all the music, were the face of the band, but that like members would rotate through the band. But no, it was actually just 2 guys with tape machines and keyboards.
Which is amazing.
Yeah. Then eventually they became a full band, a full 5-piece band. They became, in 1994, they finally became, after like 10 years or 12 years, they finally became a full band, which is the opposite trajectory of Relient K. Relient K starts out as a full band.
Right.
And now they're a duo.
Yeah.
See, now Relient K today is what I thought They Might Be Giants was when I was a kid. Relient K now is 2 guys who write all the music together. They are the face of the band, but they pull together a full band when it's time to record and tour. Mm-hmm. And now it's just 2 guys, but it's really just 2 guys as far as marketing and as far as actually representing. They're just 2 guys. That's it. You got what I'm saying?
You've said 2 guys so many times, and all I can think of is we're 2 guys who...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not even worth getting into.
Nope. So we've seen They Might Be Giants live. I mean, Danny saw them more without me, but they're a band that he took me to see when we lived in New York.
Right.
And that was fun.
The Beacon Theater.
At the Beacon Theater.
In 2008.
Yep.
Yep. And what else happened at that show? Oh, I remember what's fun about that show is we were literally in the back row.
Yeah.
I mean, the back row, the wall to our back, on the balcony. We were the furthest back. And Jessica, we've mentioned that Jessica loves Michael Bublé. She'd wanted to see Michael Bublé forever. And she was, and you said this comment to me. You were like,
story.
When Michael Bublé goes on tour, I'll ask my dad to get the tickets. But you know what ended up happening?
I'm sorry.
I got the tickets to the Michael Bublé, and I got you amazing tickets.
You did.
And we saw him twice on that tour in 2008, 2009.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's fine.
Well, our guest is going to call in just a second. Do you have anything else that you wanted to say before he hops on, like about your history with them or anything like that, how you discovered They Might Be Giants?
Well, you can hear that on our... Did we talk about that on his episode?
I think we did.
Yeah, we did. You can hear about that.
I'm not sure if we talked about it before we started recording or while we were recording.
Right. And that was a marathon session. That was like a 2.5 hour session. I don't know how it's going to be edited down.
So give us the Cliff Notes version, Dan.
They Might Be Giants were in Tiny Toons, not officially. They weren't involved in it, but the show Tiny Toons, because it's owned by Warner Brothers, and they were on a Warner Brothers subsidiary, I think, at the time. I don't remember what record label, but I'm pretty sure it was owned by Warner Brothers. They took 2 songs, Particle Man and Istanbul, Not Constantinople, and Tiny Toons had a music video parody episode where all the other songs were like golden oldies, but they had these 2 They Might Be Giant songs. Those were the 2 songs that represented like nowadays, and they did these Tiny Toons music videos to them. That's how I discovered them. But then I kind of got the sense, I've learned that some people didn't think it was a real band. They thought it was like a fake band just for Tiny Toons. I got the sense then that it was a real band, but I didn't know how to follow up on bands when I was 8 years old, 10 years old in the 90s. There's no internet. Like, I can't go out and listen to more music.
Right.
So at some point I mentioned it to my babysitter because my babysitter liked Tiny Toons.
Okay.
Like, that was a kid show she enjoyed watching with kids that she'd babysit or whatever. And she was like, oh, I know I know about They Might Be Giants. I own their full tape. And she owned Flood on cassette. And I borrowed her Flood cassette, and I listened to it all the time. And then I coaxed my grandmother into buying me a copy.
Nice.
And that's how I got into They Might Be Giants. And They Might Be Giants are a band that are like one of the back... They're the first band I ever got into that was not... Like, you can make an argument that They Might Be Giants are kids' music. That's music that kids can enjoy, but they were the first actual band that I liked. They were the first thing that wasn't like a Mickey Mouse tape or something. They were like the first actual musical artist.
Right.
That was a legitimate musical artist that toured. That wasn't literally children's music, right? So, and I've always liked them, and...
they do have kids' records.
They do have kids' records now, but that came later. That was like in the year 2002 or something like that. Yeah. But they were the first real band I liked, and they're the band that I've liked the longest as well, because later on, They Might Be Giants helps lead me to getting into Green Day and Nirvana and like grunge music, but then I didn't like grunge music as much later on, and I get into skate punk and ska music, but I still have They Might Be Giants as the backbone of my musical taste through the whole thing. See? And then it comes back full circle to Relient K, which is now... consuming my life, Relient K is.
Oh, well, that sound means we're getting a call.
Why does your Skype thing sound like a regular old-timey phone call?
Don't ask questions.
They call me Dr. Worm. Good morning, how are you? I'm Dr. Worm. I'm interested in things. I'm not a real doctor, but I am a real worm. I am an actual worm. I live like a worm. I like to play the drums.
So welcome to the show.
I think
Our very first guest here on Sadie Hawkins Pod, the host of This Might Be a Podcast. I forgot your last name. Greg Simpson.
Said it a minute ago.
You kidding me? How do you forget Simpson?
I didn't. I forgot it as I was about to say it, and then it hit where it needed to hit.
My
just
name
at the
is
last second.
Gregory Ross Simpson. My social security number is 3 bleep 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 bleep. Yeah, you guys are gonna bleep out a bunch of stuff I say, right?
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. So you were asking us about that on your show, but we like started bleeping because we didn't know, because we're like, okay, we're doing a Relient K podcast, and they're a Christian band, but we know that they have a lot of fans that aren't Christian.
Do they ever swear in their songs?
No, they've never sweared in their songs, and that was part of the reason why I was like, I don't think I might. Well, actually, if it's recorded on your side, I will have to delete that first one. But over
bleep 'em.
over
Come
the
on,
Google
bleep 'em.
Hangouts, it bleeped itself for a second.
It did.
Yeah. Bleep. So we just we actually put it out as a poll. We were like, okay, look, we swear, but we're like, do we need to bleep these? And most people were like, who cares? And it was actually second that said bleep them. It was second place that bleep them. And we were like, we're just going to bleep them.
Yeah.
Because then also we avoid the E rating and hopefully gets the podcast out more places.
Yeah, all of the Punk News podcasts have the E by them. And
Right.
Yeah, Best Midwestern is riddled with swears. I mean, the original podcast, that one's been going forever. I mean, it's called the Punk News Podcast. I mean, it's a punk podcast. You can expect there to be swears. I mean, whatever.
Oh, we have to ask you. So...
Yeah.
Before we get into Dr. Worm, and I just thought of this, so I have to look it up. But there is someone on, their name was Curl Up and Die. So there's a couple of Punk News reviews because you've worked for Punk News for years. You've been with Punk News for years.
Forever.
There's a couple
I'm sorry, I'm just
They're
going to
not
swear
you.
so much. Yeah, no,
That's
I'm
fine.
Greg Orb.
Yeah, we know they're not you, but we keep once in a while coming back to these Punk News reviews because we're like, this
of
person's
Relient K stuff.
Yeah.
We're like, clearly whoever it was a Relient K fan because their name was like Curl Up and Die or something like that, which is a Relient K song.
Oh, these are all very, very low ratings.
That's the crazy thing is they're low
Yeah.
ratings and they seem to sort of know about the band, but whoever it is, whether you do or don't know them, we do not agree with their takes. We have taken a lot of. I can't remember all the things right now, but we've taken umbrage with a lot of their takes. Wow. And I was just for like transparency's sake, just in case, we were like, maybe we should put this on the table and just let you know.
Curl Up and Die. So this is okay. So it's not a staff person. If you look at one of my reviews, the album art will have a little blue thing that says staff pick, or it'll say staff. Well, yeah, let me look up one of mine. The Hives. Let's see.
So it's X Curl Up and Die X is the reviewer that we are constantly coming back to, who gives low ratings to everything. Like, I think all they want is, like many reviewers in the world, they just want this band to stay in the style of their first 3 albums, basically.
Sure.
Because here, Forget and Not Slow Down, we were telling you on your podcast, I don't know if it's going to end up in your edit, but we were telling you, like, that's, like, basically their Pet sounds. That's where they, like...
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's, like, where they, like... is an album where they matured a lot from their previous stuff, but then Forget and Not Slow Down is where they, like, elevated what they do into an art. Everyone loves that album. Like, when we started this podcast, we didn't know that album so much because, like, it kind of intimidated us, and we're like, what's the deal? Why do people love this album? But now doing this podcast, we're like, we totally get it. We totally understand.
What is the deal? There's actually quite a few different reviewers on here, actually. They're not all reviewed. Okay, so I sent you a link to one of mine, and you'll see, like, the Hives art says staff pick right up at the top.
Okay.
Like, in the cover art. Staff review. Okay, this one. Okay, Brian Schultz reviewed one. He is staff, and he's been on, like, as long as me. He was the reviews editor. So, was reviewed by Brian. He even, while he went on to work for Bridge 9 Records, he's, like, pretty big hardcore and, like, screamo kind of guy. He, we must be around the same age. He was the one sending me, like, in the early aughts, like, right around this time, 2004, 2005. Or it was probably more like the late aughts. He was sending me, media mail packages of CDs within, like, they were all falling out of the package because they're handled so poorly.
Right.
Media mail, the cheapest way to send something. So if you look at the it says staff review, Brian Schultz. So he gave it 2.5 stars. And then my friend Scott has the first comment on here, my Best Midwestern co-host and the reviews editor at Punk News before Brian. Maverick is the screen name here. Says, this record sold like 100,000 copies its first week out. Insane. Scott. Probably because he doesn't like them. He was the one giving me shit. I'm going to make you put so many bleeps in here. Giving me shit for playing Five Iron Frenzy on the radio.
Oh, right. That's right. You
same
talked
guy.
about it on your show, but you like Five Iron Frenzy. And,
and Scott, wait. And then Scott, is this Scott, or is this a different Scott? We had a couple Scotts. This is a different Scott. Scott Oth? Okay, so I'm looking at all the people that have reviewed them. And, I guess Punk News is not really down with the Relient K, it looks like. Because we got Scott, I think this Scott Oth, who lives in Pittsburgh, he gave Deck the Halls, Bruise Your Hands 3 stars out of 5.
Right.
And then Brian Schultz gave... Mm-hmm. 2.5 stars. Apathetic was John. Which John is that? John without an H. He really likes MXPX. He gave Teenage Politics a perfect 5. He gave MXPX Let's Rock 4 stars. So down with MXPX, not down with that particular record of Relient K.
MXPX Let's Rock. That's a B-side collection, and it's like mostly slow songs.
Huh.
Like I'm surprised. There's some fun stuff on it, but it's not. It is like a lower tier record for sure.
Well, okay, he's a staff reviewer that reviewed it in early 2006. He's probably long dead. I may have killed him. I don't remember. So it's the Curl Up and Die. It looks like the only one that Curl Up and Die was the Forget and Not Slow Down. Oh wait, no, they did the Bird and the B-sides as well. So the most recent one's 2008, and well, they've had records since this, but 2008 and 2009 were reviewed by Carl Up and Die. It's Carl. Did you see that?
It's Carl Up and Die?
Yeah, Carl. It's some guy named Carl. Who's this Carl? Carl Up and Die.
Oh, you're right. Carl Up and Die. So maybe it has nothing to do with Relient K.
Maybe.
No,
Maybe
I'm
it's
sure
just
that's a plan. It's probably one of those fans that's like, yeah, really hard on him. It's like, well, it's like I've mentioned before. I'm not sure if you kept up on every episode, but I mentioned it at some point fairly recently that I put The Spine on my 2004 biggest disappointments list at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Because it still is like probably my least favorite record of theirs, but it's awesome because it's They Might Be Giants. But it was kind of like that. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. I think I actually wrote that in there like, you guys could do better. So it's like, I still like it. I still jam on The Spine. It's probably the same thing with this person. Carl.
Well, we haven't even talked about it yet, but we should mention. So you hosted They Might Be Giants podcast.
I do?
Our listeners, yes, don't you?
I think, I only recorded like 7 episodes in the past week.
It's called This Might Be a Podcast, and you go song by song through They Might Be Giants, which is an incredible feat to attempt because you've said, like, isn't it something close to like 400 songs? 300?
Well, way more than that, dude. Okay, so I'm looking at my spreadsheet right now, and I'm seeing 578 rows.
Yeah.
And then also through the Patreon stuff, I'm also covering the 2 Monopuff albums and the John Linnell albums. But I'm doing those kind of in chunks like I did. The first Patreon was Spencer Parks and I talking about the first 3 tracks of State songs. And then me and Adam's package, Adam Gorin, talked about tracks 4 through 6 off of that. And I did 1 Monopuff that was 4 tracks off of Unsupervised. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff, and people keep telling me I'm missing stuff. Actually, it's more than that because have you ever heard of Venue Songs?
Yes.
I mean, that's like
I just bought that on my trip to Portland, actually.
Yep. I recently got a physical copy of it too because I wanted the DVD. So that is shoved over in the G column because I haven't cleaned this thing up enough to jam. So that's like another 30 songs.
We just put a spreadsheet together for ourselves, and we're only and I had to clean it up because there were tons of like duplicate and like things like that. And Relient K does a bunch of like interludes and things that we're not considering separate episodes. So I had to, so
don't wuss out.
Well, we've already done it that way. So we've done it that way for multiple songs already. But when I clean those all up, it's about 170 episodes that we have.
Yeah.
So out of like probably close to over 200 tracks, we have about 170 episodes to do.
So they're right on par with Blink.
Yeah. Just over.
Yeah. They Might Be Giants are just, I mean, they've been going since 1982, and I did Weep Day, which, this will be coming out like right after the Open Mike Eagle episode I had. Weep Day was recorded in 1983, not released on an EP that was long out of print in 1992, so 9 years later. Most people heard it in 1997 when the Then compilation came out. You know Weep Day, right?
Right, yep.
Yeah. Great song, but like it's so obscure, it's not on Spotify.
Right.
Okay, so like you can find it on YouTube. It's not on Spotify. It's just not even like... And that's a song that like most fans know, but casual fans would have no idea what you're talking about. Right. Like there's just so many things. Like, did you know there was a bootleg covers album that was put together and dubbed on cassette and sent around to the fan communities in the late 90s?
In the 90s? No, I know of Hello Radio.
Okay, so no. This is They Might Be Giants covering other band songs.
Okay.
So, and they called it Stump Box. And this episode will not have come out yet, but I talked to Matt Flood, that's his real name. He helped put this together through the fan site previous to the TMBW wiki. I need to remember I need to explain things more since this is not my podcast.
Right.
The They Might Be Giants wiki, there was a previous incarnation like tmbg.alt. Whatever, you know, something
I
weird
used to
90s
go to
website.
that website all the time.
Yeah. So some people around that community basically cobbled together these live bootleg recordings of them doing Smells Like Teen Spirit, I Want to Be Sedated,
Wow.
Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered, old school, right? The Joker, A Horse With No Name, and dubbed these onto cassettes. And the art for the cassettes, I don't know why, was, I don't know if you are a comics fan much, but in the 90s there was this Image comics called Max with 2 X's.
Oh, definitely.
The cover was like that guy, like purple and yellow guy, just kind of like this. I don't know why. I forgot to ask Matt about that. But I'm trying to convince him to, he has one copy of it left, and I'm like, it's meant to be on cassette. It's lo-fi. Send me a cassette copy, please. And he's like, I need to find a tape player. I don't have one anymore. And that dude runs Asbestos Records now, which has put out Flood on vinyl, has put out a double LP of John Henry. Like, he works with They Might Be Giants. So, anyway, this is not a They Might Be Giants podcast, so I'll shut up now.
No, this is a Relient K podcast, but
this is what I'm saying. There's so many goddamn songs. Like, if I want to do covers episodes,
that's what we're talking about, yeah.
There's 15 of them right there.
Right.
To add on to the 540 that I already said.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Well, I did Jessica, before we decided to do a Relient K podcast, Jessica was like, why don't you do an MXPX podcast? And eventually, now there is an MXPX podcast I was telling you about called Magnified Pod. They also, in their second season, they moved on to Five Iron Frenzy, but they go album by album. So they do like the discography of a band, and then they do and they've only done 2 seasons, but I guess this is the trajectory of their show.
That seems a lot more reasonable.
Yeah.
than what we're doing.
But before they started doing that, Jessica said to me, like, why don't you do an MXPX podcast? She didn't really want to do it. Maybe she'd come on the show. But MXPX actually have an official song list that can be found. It used to be on their website. They took it down at one point, but you can find it through like the Time Machine and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I put that in Excel, and they have 300 songs that are released. And like, it's known that Mike Herrera has written even more songs than that have never seen the light of day. He's like a super prolific songwriter. So I was like, no, I don't need to do 300 different MXPX songs. This seemed more manageable, 170. But yeah,
that's the thing. Like, well, then if you wanted to do for your Patreon episodes, do some of those weirder ones, the deep cuts for
Well, I was thinking of this when you mentioned
solo
Weekday.
songs or whatever.
When you mentioned Weekday, Relient K, we're figuring out, does not have a lot of like super rare stuff. They maybe have less than 10 tracks I'm aware of that, at least at this point, that are like super rare. Like well,
that's kind of nice.
Yeah,
that's kind of nice. I mean, it's nice to dig and find like a gem.
Right.
Like someone who hasn't heard Weekday. It's like, I've been into the band for 20 years. I'm only hearing this song for the first time. And like, that's kind of cool. But also, I mean, I remember seeing the Hold Steady once and them saying something on stage about how they don't put out rare 7-inches. They don't put out, like, intentionally, they want their music to be easy to find and don't want to, like, have people, like, jacking the prices up on eBay for their stuff, you know. They want stuff to be accessible. So there's something to be said for that. These are the good songs. The rest got so trashed that no one will ever hear them.
Right.
These are the ones we want you to hear.
Yeah, I think that's what Relient K did. I don't think they release a song unless they're happy with it. And then there are just there's like an early EP. There's a song called Operation on an early EP that never went anywhere else. It never ended up on B-side collections or their box set of their early work or anything like that. And then there's a couple songs on their first demo, which is easily accessible, but is now only on YouTube. Like, it's not streaming or anything.
Right.
And there's a couple songs on there that they did not carry through any further into their career.
Well, what you should be doing now, I mean, you know about those sites where you can like rip an MP3 off of YouTube, right?
Yeah,
Use
exactly.
Those? Yeah. So you should be ripping all of those as you find them just in case they get taken down.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Never know.
I've done that for covers. When we've talked about, I haven't brought this to the show before, but there are covers that we have found when we're talking about, a relatively well-known song for Relient K. And then I was like, I really love that cover. I'm going to go back and listen to it. And it's gone. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no. And
Yeah.
one time, and we edited, and I got so mad.
Oh my gosh.
One
he got
time.
so mad.
One time, someone edited it out, or deleted it, sorry. Someone deleted their cover between the moment I found it and 2 days later when we recorded, they deleted their cover. And it had been up for 8 years. And I'm like, how did this happen? And I can't remember what song it was right now, but it was a song where all the covers were just solo guitar, and that gets really boring after a while, and then it's like, we can't talk about all of these. And this one person did a video game style cover, but not like not a chiptune thing, but they did just like an electronic cover with video game elements and some other ambient like electronic stuff in the back.
Yeah.
And it was so cool, and I was so happy we found it. And then it's deleted, and I was so upset. I was really upset on the podcast, and I had to take a break, and we had to.
Oh, were you actually recording? And then it's like,
yeah, we're recording.
I'll just bring it up.
Yeah, I'm like getting into my preamble for the cover, and now it's gone. And I'm like, and I go, and I'm like, what? Where is it? And I was so upset. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like the song "All Time What" by They Might Be Giants. I like fun. There was a guy who actually. And I may have said this on an episode. Again, I'm so far ahead. I can't remember what's even aired. A guy who recorded a cover, like, just for me. Like, I put a shout out, and I'm like, I can only find one cover of this song.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's a year and a half old. Like, what gives? It's almost 2 years old. Why are there not more covers? It's a great Flansburgh song. So this guy's like, here you go. He recorded it, like, in a day and then put it up on SoundCloud. And then so me and my guest, ACJ Nickel, who's in LA, talked about it. And we loved it, and then like a month later when I went to edit the episode, he had taken it down.
Oh, wow.
And he had actually deleted his whole SoundCloud. Like, it just disappeared. I'm like, what happened to this guy? I'm like, what on earth? Like, and then like he's on Twitter. I found him on Twitter. He wasn't answering to that. Or had he like deleted his Twitter? He's back now, but someone did some stealth Googling for me and found an email address for him
Nice.
off of a website. So I emailed him. He's like, oh, yeah, I'll just send you the MP3. He's like, he's just like, I couldn't maintain all these sites. It's not that I didn't like it or I didn't like whatever. He's like, I just decided to just pare down to like his official website or something.
Right.
So that was like, it wasn't on air. On air, we talked about it like, oh, this is so good and this electronic version, blah, blah, blah. And then I go to edit it. I'm like, where is it?
Yeah, so I've been
it's funny.
saving. So as I download things to edit them, I've been saving them on my hard drive for so I have these covers that I like, and also there's like full concerts of Relient K that I'm like, who knows when these will just suddenly disappear, and some of these have the only live footage I could find of certain songs that we haven't gotten to yet, and I'm like, I better save all of this.
Especially when the virus, takes down Google
Exactly.
and YouTube just goes under and everything. It's like when MySpace lost like everyone's files.
That's so upsetting.
Yeah.
What if it happened to YouTube? Can you imagine?
I know, yeah.
Can you imagine? There is so much on there, and people don't back stuff up. They're like, "Oh, it's in the cloud. It's fine.
Right. Yeah.
It's on the net. It's on the web. It's fine."
So Dr. Worm.
Wait, what? No. Doctor Who? What I think you should do is be like, and here's the cover section, and then play the They Might Be Giants version.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't told you this, but like for the Relient K cover album, K is for Karaoke.
Yeah.
We're mostly doing it as Patreon episodes, but we're
Okay.
doing this one free. We're gonna do. They did Africa, like
Oh yeah.
9 years before Weezer
Before
did
it blew up again. Yeah.
Yeah, and their cover is way better than Weezer's.
I'll have to check that out.
So we're gonna talk about that in front of the paywall, and then it's gonna be a double free Weezer thing. They did Surf Wax America, and we're gonna do that in front of
nice.
the paywall. And then
Great
the rest
song.
people are gonna have to pay us if they want to hear more K for Karaoke.
Yeah.
Cough up that money, yo.
Yeah. So this was amazing. This was the fact that they did this song was like so worlds colliding for me, because I've talked about it a little bit on your podcast, but They Might Be Giants is the first real artist that I ever learned about or got into, and it was because of Tiny Toons. So it's technically because of Kids Entertainment I learned about them. But they were an actual band, an actual artist that I learned about. First tape I owned that wasn't a Disney tape. It wasn't Donald Duck singing or something. And then
I can't do a good Donald Duck.
Jessica does.
You should bleep some of that out. Like, put a bleep in there.
Whoa, this is a family-friendly. Disney's going to come after us.
Hey, Donald,
Forget
put your
Relient K being upset about us.
Put your pants back on, Donald. Why are you never wearing pants?
So
Daisy
Relient
likes
K.
it. She's not wearing pants either.
Yeah.
Or is she? I don't remember. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah,
I'm here to derail. I'm here to
She
just
wears, like, a
derail
dress.
everything.
Yeah, she wears a
Yeah,
dress.
does she? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just Donald just walking
So
around.
maybe
it's
Disney
like,
characters' genitals are like in their belly buttons or something. Maybe
well,
that's
ducks, it's all hidden under those feathers.
Jessica just
feathers.
gave me the weirdest look, but I'm serious. Like, think about it. Like, the characters that don't wear pants, they have shirts, right? But the characters that don't wear shirts, they have, like, Mickey Mouse, like, has, overalls and pants up to his up to his chest.
Yeah.
So
Up to
maybe
his
all
nipples.
of the Disney characters, maybe their genitals are just like by their stomachs because their stomachs are always covered.
I think my goal here is just to make your wife blush as much as possible. So that's going to be my goal here.
Well,
Jess, I apologize in advance, but oh, hold on, I forgot. There you go. You're gonna have to be trigger finger ready on that bleeping machine.
Yeah.
So this was released in 2011, right?
yeah, this was released in 2011, so it was just kind of like a worlds colliding thing for me. And when you already talked about Dr. Worm on your show. And
Episode 3.
That's right. And you did that with your wife, right? You did that podcast with your wife, so it was kind of like a proto Sadie Hawkins pod. Yeah. To do a podcast with your wife.
You owe us big.
Yeah.
We're going to need royalties of some kind.
And I remember, and Jessica and I hadn't even thought of the idea of doing this podcast when you talked about that, but I was like, I hope they talk about the Relient K cover, and you did.
Yeah.
You didn't have
like, who is this?
Yeah, you didn't have a ton to say about it that I remember, but the thing is, we didn't have a ton to say about it either when we did our, preliminary section of this episode without you. They made some of the instruments a little heavier. And my general feeling, I don't know what your feelings are on the cover. That's what I'm getting at. Is what I'm getting at is what I'm going to ask you. But like our feeling was like, it felt like they just made some of the instruments a little heavier, and it's almost like they were holding back from trying to make this like a proper like full ahead pop punk version. It felt like they were holding back, maybe in reverence to They Might Be Giants. Like, let's keep this sort of the pace, the tempo, in line with the original. But the fact that they kind of like boosted up some of that instrumentation, and it felt like they were holding back from doing something totally different.
Yeah, that's the problem that I have, like, because we put out a whole, or Outdoor Velour, one of my bands, put out a whole covers album early last year, and it was expensive for one. Thank God I have a recording studio. We spent over $850 on licensing to stay above board.
Oh, wow.
Paid They Might Be Giants like $40, I think, to do Dr. Worm. And for songs I really, really like, and I think it might be because I'm a drummer, the like tempo and vibe and like the groove of a song is like a really major component. Mm-hmm. So like if I'm going to change the tempo of a song, I really have to have some weird thing in mind. Because like if it's a song I've loved like Dr. Worm, for 20 years, it's just like, how much do I really want to mess with this, Right. And so... a secret. I actually, when I started, because Outdoor Velour, when it was just me and Cara, I would actually start with drums a lot of the time. So when I started our cover, not only is it a similar tempo, it is the exact tempo, because I drummed along with the original my ears. Yeah. And just, I went off on my own things. I did different fills. I did slightly different, less swingy kind of beginning. But like, it's the exact tempo because I was just playing along with the original in my ear. And then over top of that, built our version. So it is the exact same tempo. And there's, the Relient K one is pretty, they lean into the swinging thing at the beginning. Dun, 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 dun. Like they almost make it more jazzy, but still heavier on the guitars. So the guitars are a lot thicker in their version, but they still keep that kind of swingy beginning, and then it goes straight ahead. They keep the feel pretty much what Outdoor Velour did on our take was keep the feel of it intact and just screw with like the vocal delivery. Obviously, for every singer is going to be different. He's not going to like imitate Linnell or something. So the vocal delivery, the guitar style, it's definitely typical Relient K guitars, you know, that pop punk
Yeah.
guitar style. And they added a lot of harmonies, which I like.
Cool. Yeah, that's the stuff we can't figure out.
Yes.
Because we're not professional musicians.
Well,
Jessica
Yeah.
wants to open candy. She keeps eyeing candy here in our home.
candy.
And she's like, I really want that caramel. And I've got to open this loud.
Whoa, that is
This is
loud.
a
That's very
yeah,
loud. What
this
is
is a-
that? A
I don't
box of rocks?
They're like some
Is
sort of
that-
caramels.
Those are grandma's candies. Ooh, look at that.
I don't even know where these came from.
They came out of
You're-
those Day of the Dead boxes.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know. Like, we got this gift. It was like for the Mexican Day of the Dead.
It was
But-
a Halloween present from my mom.
Oh, well, they're
Oh.
dressed, but it's like, okay, then I guess it's a Mexican themed Halloween thing. Those aren't at the same time of year, right? Mexican Day of the Dead and Halloween? I don't know.
It's the day. Yeah, it is.
The day after or something.
Oh, is
It's
it?
the
Okay.
day after. Yeah.
Okay,
it's
so she bought it
November
thinking it was a
1st.
Halloween thing, but it is a Day of the Dead
Close enough.
box
Yeah.
full of candy. Anyway, but yeah, no, that's something I was hoping, because I know you're not only a They Might Be Giants expert, but you are a musician, and therefore you have expertise in music as well. So I'm like,
I suppose,
that's always
yeah.
good, because
Yeah.
we don't really have the ability to talk about harmonies.
Yeah.
We've been learning a little bit. Jessica picked
So-
up the bass, so we could
Yeah.
she could learn a little bit more, and we've been watching, YouTube
Nice.
videos and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
basically, we don't have any deeper understanding of like keys or time signatures, anything like that.
Well, what the hell are you doing with the podcast? Now, I realize that I get like into the thick of it a lot more than other podcasts, and I think I told you I kind of avoided it at first. I was like, people are gonna just like be like, "What? This is boring," but I did it once with Rachel Jones, who was doing her doctorate in musicology. So we like got into the thick of it with "We Want to Rock," I think, Flood. They Might Be Giants, Flood, and people responded positively to it. So now I've just been like going all in on that, and like, no, this is not in this key signature.
Well, I
Nope,
appreciate
this is
it.
not. This is well. Okay, good.
I appreciate it
'cause-
because it helps me figure things out, and if any other, I listened a little bit to the show Song Exploder, but they don't
Yeah.
get as technical as I want them to get. Like they actually some episodes do.
the episodes are too short.
Yeah, like I want them to go way deeper than they go.
Yeah. I need to get Relient K in there.
Yeah.
So
we're-
so I think in 2011. So the lead singer, what's the lead singer's name?
Matt Thiessen.
Okay, is he harmonizing himself there, or is there another
Probably.
dude that's in that era of the band who would have been doing the harmonies?
I'd have to re-listen to it, but I assume it's him harmonizing with himself because he does that on
That's
a
what
lot
it sounds
of
like.
songs.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds
yeah.
like to me. Yeah, and lots of times, like, They Might Be Giants will do that, too. And in Dr. Worm, there are some harmonies that are kind of hidden, but really it's mostly just, like, Linnell's lead. So he really, like, thickens up those harmonies a lot. And it's mostly, like, he's pretty much just doing a parallel third above the melodies. So it's like, if the note's in F sharp, because the song's in, I think they keep the same key signature. Hold on, let me see. Hold on, I'm going to check the key signature for you. See if they kept it in F sharp major, which is like the guitarist's like least favorite key. I've seen people, actually, when Pet Sematary covered it on the second live episode, Birdhouse, the guy used a capo. So he capoed his guitar so that he could play normal open chords and not have to play all these crazy bar chords. Hold on, let me just check here. Yeah, they keep the key signature the same.
Okay.
So
Now
yeah.
you're taking the job of one of our Twitter followers, one of our listeners.
I'm putting a man out of work.
I know.
Well, I mean, I've covered it, so I know how to play it,
Yeah.
and I played with my first graders on accordion. I mean, my accordions are over there if you'd like. So that's one thing they don't have in their version is accordion, but they keep the horns. So it's actually a good horn key, which I don't know what Linnell was thinking. John Linnell of They Might Be Giants when he wrote it. If he was like, "Oh, this will be good for the horns," I got horns in mind. But the guitarists are like, well, if you're good at bar chords or power chords, it doesn't really matter. And these guys are probably playing mostly power chords, so it doesn't matter as much that you're playing an F sharp as opposed to an G or
Right.
whatever. That's an easier chord.
We were trying to find.
But yeah, so they keep it pretty faithful. They don't change the key. They barely change the tempo. But it's mostly arrangement. So like the thicker pop punk guitars, the vocal harmonies.
Right.
And so he's doing a third. So like if he's singing, then he would add the,
If you say so.
well, so like you add the, so if you're singing, and do those at the same time, they sound pretty, you know.
He must be harmonizing with himself, like I said, because it's something we started to notice in Relient K's music, that it's on a lot of tracks, and it's probably gotten to the point where I didn't even notice it on Dr. Worm because it happens so much with Matisse harmonizing with himself.
Right. And is that something he does a lot on the regular albums, or is it like especially prevalent on this covers
album? No, it
album?
happens on the regular albums a lot.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say, like, with this, like, it's saying it's an EP, but it turned to a full length, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
part 2?
So they did 2 EPs, and then they collected them all together and released the full length, which is now... They did a similar thing, I realized, with their Christmas album. They had a Christmas EP in 2003, and then they filled it out with more songs in 2008 and released it only as the full length. And now you can't find the EP on streaming or iTunes or anything because technically it's within this full length. And they did the exact same thing with this cover project where they had 2 EPs and you could, download the EPs at the time, but then they put it all together in a full length. And now you can't technically get the EPs anymore. Although one EP apparently was pressed to CD, but not the other one, I think. I was trying to figure this out. And this is a blind spot for us because we don't, of all the albums, because we have not talked about this album yet. And it's really when we talk about the songs and the albums that we start to realize more about them. But there is such a confusing release history about this, and we never listened to it too much. But yeah.
Well, I'm assuming you looked at just Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Says that, Alt Press reported that they were releasing this EP, K is for Karaoke, and was available, June 28th, 2011 through the Amazon MP3 store, also available through iTunes, or as a physical CD on the Vans Warped Tour Rock the Universe at Universal Studios. And then October 4th of that year, they released a second EP, which says nothing about a CD. So I think then at that point, they're like, just tack it on.
Right. I think that's, that makes sense. Because I just went to Discogs, and I typed in K for Karaoke, because I was actually trying to find out who plays horns in this, but they didn't have a full, musician's credit on Discogs. Yeah. I just realized it could be Matt Thiessen, because he does play trumpet. Because when we've seen them live, they've done a cover of Cake's The Distance, and he played trumpet on it.
I think Hoops played something.
Oh, did he play something as well?
He might have played... I want to say trombone, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, there's promotional photos of them where they're holding trumpets and stuff. So I think it's an instrument that he plays.
Yeah. So was the Dr. Worm cover on the initial EP? I mean, it's put at track 8 on the full length.
I think it was on the second EP.
Mm-hmm.
The second EP.
Because like I said, when I went to Discogs and was just looking at physical CDs, it wasn't on the physical CD EP, and that's the first one. So I did.
Well, I was gonna say that's where you find the credits is in an actual CD booklet, but if it was never on CD,
the EP is not too. The first EP physical release is not too expensive right now, so maybe we should buy one before it gets the Sadie Hawkins pod bump and everyone goes out there trying to buy it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, this is a great collection of songs. I mean, they've got big hits, but kind of ones you might not expect. Like "Girls Just Want to Have Fun" is great. Right. Baby is did they kind of, I haven't heard that one. Did they just play it off kind of as a joke, or did they take it seriously?
That's going to be the first one we do on our own. First one for Patreon is going to be Baby. And I think it's a partially ironic thing because here's a pop song, but Matt Thiessen does write pop songs he writes music and songs for other pop artists.
Really?
Yeah, and they have an album called Collapsible Lung, which is kind of their most maligned by the fan community album, where it's their big pop sensibility album, where there's it's we joke that it's basically grocery store music. It's nothing. If you remember Relient K from...
Right. Punk News didn't even bother to review it.
Yeah, so. It's not a punk album. So my point was, before Poptimism was a concept, I think Matt Thiessen's always been a poptimist, so he probably did it not fully ironically, with a little irony, but not too much.
Sure.
And also, this is 2011, and so it's before Justin Bieber revealed himself as the biggest piece of garbage in the universe.
Yeah, I think Baby came out in 2006 or 2007, I want to say, because I was teaching in an elementary school in rural Indiana, just like I do now, but different town. And this song was so hot that year that I usually am the one that puts together the talent show. You guys, did you have elementary school talent shows?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They're fantastic. So there's always that one song every year that like usually the girls, every girl auditions to. I'm like, just pick a different song. I'm only letting one of you in. Just pick a different song, okay? But then they all sing Baby. The girl who ended up doing it was a second grader, and she did great. Like, she bested all these older girls. She did the whole rap part, like the ludicrous rap. It was great. Wait, did they do the rap portion in the
They
cover?
probably do, huh?
I haven't.
We haven't listened back to it.
Oh, the whole Starbucks thing, all that. Yeah, like it's a clean rap because I mean, Justin Bieber at the time was meant for tweens, you know.
Yeah.
But this is great. Yeah, Interstate Love Song. I was the guy that was like, Stone Temple Pilots are better than Pearl Jam, and they are.
Well,
I still stand by that.
I don't care for Pearl Jam at all, to be honest.
You know, Core was kind of a weak album, but like Purple, the album that has Interstate Love Song, so good. Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Inside of Love, I love Not a Surf. That is fantastic. This is a good selection here. I'm gonna have to just go and listen to this whole thing finally. This whole covers album.
Cool.
Good job, Relient K.
Yeah.
You know, just picking a good selection of stuff, and it's a wide variety of stuff. You know, it's like not all ironic stuff. It's not all hipster stuff. There's a good selection here. This is a good track list.
I found one interview, and we didn't bring this up. So we didn't bring this up without you here yet. But I found one interview where they're talking with the drummer at the time, Ethan Luck. They've had three drummers, or they've had three drummers that, like, you know, depending on your favorite era of Relient K,
right?
They're kind of differentiated by these three drummers. What was I saying? So my point is, interview with Ethan Luck. They asked him, and this is with Indievision Music, which is like a Christian alternative sort of website. I guess this must have been 2000. This had to have been 2011 because they're talking about how the full length is coming soon. And I just lost the part about Dr. Worm.
Good thing this isn't live radio.
But I want you to hear this because I thought this was funny because it was so not true of them. It was not true when they thought this. They asked the drummer Ethan Luck, "Why did you cover Dr. Worm?" And he says, "I think that was Matt's idea," and he must be talking about Matt Thiessen, the lead singer, because there's two Matts in the band. And he says, he says, "I think the whole." Oh, that's something else I had to mention. I'll mention that second. He says, "I think it was Matt's idea. I think the whole band is a fan of They Might Be Giants, and that was one of those songs we thought was very obscure. But I guess it wasn't that obscure because tons of fans seemed to like it and already knew the song prior to releasing it." That's my favorite on the EP. So that's so funny that they were probably thinking like, they probably just thought Istanbul or something was
yeah, or what? Parkland, Birdhouse? I mean, it
had a music video for They Might Be Giants.
It was, well, it's what I consider the last of the first wave of music videos. So there's a They Might Be Giants, like, do you have Direct from Brooklyn,
yes.
the music video collection?
I have the VHS and the DVD.
Yeah, I just have it on VHS, right? And it came out right after Dr. Worm. It was almost like, I feel like, a promotional thing for Dr. Worm because it was, Dr. Worm, I believe, was the first video on that. Is it not? The very first one? Because then it goes kind of chronologically a little bit, or maybe chronologically backwards. I don't know, but it felt like at the time, because Dr. Worm, for They Might Be Giants, for people who don't, I can't assume that people know these things on this podcast, it was tacked on to the front of a live album called Severe Tire Damage in 1997. So Severe Tire Damage was a live album that was pieced together from a whole range of live shows, really cool arrangements of some of their older songs, stuff that people would know. Who aren't even that big of fans of the band, as well as some more obscure ones. But then they tacked on 2 studio recordings for some reason. One was almost just like an intro kind of theme track, and then one was, there's They Got Lost, and then there was, or no, that was a live one. I'm blanking. But yeah, Dr. Worm was just tacked on to the beginning. It's like, I don't know what the deal was at the time. I mean, they were just off of Elektra Records, so they were just done with their major label deal.
Right.
And I think they might have used up the last bit of that money to make a really expensive music video. And Dr. Worm isn't extravagant or anything, but there's a lot of elements. There's the music video for it has animation. It's got the live video. It's got some cool cuts and stuff. So I mean, like, music videos are expensive, especially in 1997,
Right.
So like and then they put out that collection. I feel like oh, we're worried Dr. Worm's going to be forgotten. It's just on this live album. So let's put out this video collection, and it's on there too. And that video and that song have become like one of the most popular They Might Be Giants songs. Like if you look on the wiki, it's always like there's the song rankings. Like that's another thing I love about the wiki for They Might Be Giants is the song rankings. Let's see, where does Dr. Worm fall?
Like a half a year ago or so, 6 months ago, same thing. I created my They Might Be a Wiki login, and I was like, I'm going to rate every single song. At least, it's not 500 because you have a way longer list than is available on there. But I'm like, I'm going to be a good fan and give my rating for every single song. And I gave up like 3 days into this project.
Yeah. So it's ranked. So on the wiki, like we were discussing how many songs they have. The song rankings have 910 songs. But that's because even Dr. Worm, when I looked alphabetically for Dr. Worm, it has Dr. Worm, the studio version, Dr. Worm demo, Dr. Worm Dial a Song, which is like the demo of a demo, Dr. Worm live on the live album Almanac, and then Dr. Worm Famous Polka Medley live. Mm-hmm. So there's 5 Dr. Worms. Yeah. So it kind of, the popular ones and the ones that have demos really up the number a lot. But out of the 910, Dr. Worm, the studio version, is number 6.
Right. Yeah, it's a big song. So
to say it's an obscure song. The drummer thought it was obscure, right? Is that what you said?
What are you gonna
say?
The
drummer?
There was that Kablam video.
Oh, yeah.
As well.
That too. Yeah, so there were two videos.
Yeah.
Right? So they were pushing it to... Yeah, so they were pushing it to like MTV or MTV2 or whatever was actually playing music videos at the time, but also to like the kids.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was the drummer who, at least in his recollection, the year that they did it, he's like, we thought it was obscure, but I guess it's not. I find that funny. One other thing I was going to say was I just remembered this. I've been thinking about this forever leading up to this episode. I'm like, I hope I don't forget to mention it. But there's an odd parallel. Like an opposite, what would you call it? Like an opposite, like an X-shaped parallel? There's an opposite trajectory for both They Might Be Giants and Relient K. Okay? Because, first of all, you have John and John, and they are the two main people who, and we know that like They Might Be Giants started as a duo specifically, and they had drum machines, and they had all these electronic elements, and they did all this stuff. Then they become a full band. You have John and John, and then their band is known to have Dan and Dan, and another guy who's
they
not
had 3
named Dan.
Dans for a while.
Yes,
and,
they
you know,
did.
They had a full house, 2 Johns and 3 Dans.
That's right.
The band of Dans for Mink Carr.
Well, ignore that for my odd coincidences.
Okay,
because,
sorry I said that. You can cut that out. Just one giant bleep. One giant bleep for the whole sentence.
So Relient K are pretty much like the core of the band is the 2 Matts. There's Matt Thiessen, the singer, and Matt Hoops, the lead guitarist, and they are like the 2 guys who met. They're the Paul and John of the band. They're the Tom and Mark. They're like the 2 guys that met and were like, let's start a band. And everyone else.
I thought you went with Beatles and then Blink.
I was just trying to think of
2 titans, pillars of rock. What about Mick and Keith? I mean, that was hilarious.
I'm just going off of what I know, and all I know are bands that start with B.
That's fine. The Beatles, and it jumps right to Blink. Nothing in the middle.
That's like the history of rock and roll with Relient K, and There Might Be Giants in the middle. But then, so now I'm thrown off. Relient K has Matt and Matt, 2 guys, same name, just like John and John and There Might Be Giants. Then, in a later time in their history, they have 2 Johns in their band. They have John Schneck and John Warren. And we didn't mention that, but they changed the rabbi reference in Dr. Worm to Rabbi Warren, and that was the name of their bass player at the time because they have 2 Johns in the band. One's John Warren. But yeah, so you're following this so far, right? It goes deeper. Because
is this like a Christopher Nolan movie?
It is.
I mean, or is it M. Night Shyamalan? Which one? What's the twist? Yeah.
The twist is They Might Be Giants start as a duo, become a full band. Relient K starts as a full band and become a duo. Because nowadays, Relient K, with their last album, which was 2016, they pretty much said, like, okay, we've had people coming and going from the band. The core of this band is Matt and Matt, so we're a duo. and then we just, whoever our friends are that can come on tour or help with whatever EP or song that we're working on. So it's now just, when you go on the Wikipedia for Relient K, it just shows 2 members. Like,
wow.
Yeah.
So what are your guys' thoughts on that? I mean, that's kind of interesting, because in the back of my mind, I'd be like, man, are these guys just jerks or what? What's the deal? They can't keep other guys around. I mean, being a touring band, making a rock band your lifestyle, especially as you're creeping, in your 40s or whatever, it's like, it's a rough life, Yeah. I don't think that's the case, but do you have any idea I mean, They Might Be Giants have a lot of backing guys, but since they started as a duo, it's kind of just like,
I know that
we hire on the guys we like, right?
I know that the last full version of the band that the world knows, which was Matt, John, and Ethan. Ethan left the band, but then the Johns in the band, not your Johns, but our Johns, they didn't officially leave. Like, the band just kind of went on hiatus, and when they came back, like, they just weren't available. So, like, John Warren and John Schneck never... This is something I heard in an interview.
Wow.
They never fully left the band.
Yeah, they're still officially members of the band. They just
haven't
were not part of the
played
last
in
record.
like 8 years.
And haven't toured.
Yeah.
Ouch.
So, and I think that I've heard a lot of interviews where they're all still friends with pretty much everyone that's been in the band.
Yeah.
So their original bass player, who was kind of like a core member, he's the only other member on the demo that kind of stayed through the band for many years. They actually have had more drummers than I even mentioned before. They had a drummer just on their demo.
Is this like Spinal Tap, where one just like spontaneously, combusted, left a module of goo or whatever? He choked on his own vomit. You can't dust for vomit. We don't know if it was his vomit. So did you know? So you're a Patreon subscriber. You know that They Might Be Giants had a third John at one point, right? Very briefly.
That's right. I did know that. Yes.
Their first drummer, their first human drummer,
right.
He was only on one recorded song. I had him on a Patreon episode, Jonathan Feinberg. So his name's Jonathan Feinberg, but when he joined the band, John Feinberg and John Flansburgh are so close together. They're like, we're gonna call you JD, like his middle name. So like he became JD Feinberg. I think he basically said like, no one's ever called me JD except when I was in that band. There were already 2 Johns, and there was already a John F. Berg, Flansburgh and Feinberg. You're JD. Okay. But yeah, the Band of Dans. That was only really for one album for me.
Yeah, I remember that. I think that was the first time I saw the Maybe Giants live. It was still the Band of Dans, because I remember them making the Full House joke. And I remember being super excited that all the members of They Might Be Giants other than the Johns were named Dan, because my name was Dan. And my name still is Dan.
Yeah. It's also kind of oddly satisfying. Yeah. Like... And I've been in a band with another Greg, too. This band, Minus World. Also, my first podcast co-host was named Greg. 2 Gregs, 1 podcast. And, and we once did an episode with a third friend who was Greg, and we called that episode 3 Gregs, 1 podcast, and that was very... I mean, I guess it's not confusing if you're just having a conversation with each other.
Right.
But if someone's like, hey, John, and, like, 3 people turn to look.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dan Leary. Yeah, so Irish. I want to put an O Leary, like Miss O'Leary's.
I know. I think one time. I think recently you did put an O on my name.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh no. Well, I'm from Chicago, so
when I was on your Patreon like roundtable episode, I think on one of because you posted in multiple places, like one was Facebook and Twitter. One of them you wrote O'Leary, but I was like, that's fine.
Whoops.
I don't care.
Because
our family was the O'Learys until my grandmother arrived in America and lost the O. Because
it fell off the boat.
Yeah, you know that whole thing.
The O just fell right off.
Well, that's literally that's what they call it. The O, like they lost the O on the boat.
Yeah.
I don't know how true.
I never even heard that. Yeah.
I don't know how factual this is, but this is the story that I always heard about like Irish families coming to America. That after a while, immigration got tired of just writing O on everything, so they just would start writing their name without the O. And
alphabetically, that O's not important.
Yeah.
I don't get this whole Irish thing. And all the ones that start with the MC, it's just like, I'll just drop that off. Well, like with my mom's name, like we're talking about, like the ancestry and stuff, and the mom's names are always harder. The women, taking on their husband's name or whatever, like then it gets just harder to track back. So like my mom's maiden name is Lawrence. But like the thought, like she actually went to Poland and Lithuania to like go and try to find stuff out, because like for my dad it was super easy. Like especially when Ancestry.com came around. So my mom's like going there, and they're like, was it Lorenz with a Z? Was it Lorenzki? You know, was it very Polish? And they just changed it to Lawrence with a C. So who knows? And she'll probably never find out because that was just lost to time. So yeah, it's crazy how that works. And again, the immigration thing. It's like, your last name's not important. Just your name starts with an L now. There's too many O's in this ledger. We can't keep track of it.
Well, you know who got to decide what they called themselves? And they made sure everyone knew it, was Dr. Worm. He said, my name's Dr. Worm. Because he didn't, he wasn't an actual doctor. So he was like, everyone call me Dr. Worm, please.
Well, his name is actually Worm.
Yeah.
But his title was not earned.
Right.
No.
And Rabbi Vol, we never know if Rabbi Vol was actually a rabbi.
Right.
Know? Can Rabbi Vol perform bar and bat mitzvahs? Don't know.
And I don't know if John Warren was actually a rabbi. No, he wasn't a rabbi.
So they say Rabbi Warren when the solo comes in, right?
Yeah. That's the name of their actual bass player. And when the first time I actually noticed that, I turned to Jessica and I'm like, is John Warren ethnically Jewish? I don't have any idea.
Yeah, I don't think
I don't think so. But I wasn't that crazy to think so, because there is another big Christian punk band, punk adjacent band whose lead singer was Jewish, and that was the Supertones. So it's not that, and they're like the most Christian band.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the Jews like the Old Testament.
Yeah.
So it's fine. Jesus was Jewish, so there you go.
But well, speaking of that, I have one other Dr. Worm story that actually ties into the Christian theme of our podcast, and that is. So I was a huge They Might Be Giants fan for my whole life. They're like the band that carried with me through different times where I was into different types of music. They're like the band that I kept with no matter if I liked grunge, and then I dropped grunge for skate punk, and then I started listening to ska, but I always had They Might Be Giants. One time at a youth group, I brought Severe Tire Damage. I had just bought it to youth group, and I was like, nice. There's no swears on this. So and then the thing is, my parents were not stringent about music. They didn't care. Like they're the reason I was Christian, but they didn't care. Like as long as I didn't have like really filthy music. Like the only two CDs they ever took away from me were 9 Inch Nails' Broken EP for obvious reasons. But then also Adam Sandler's "They're All Gonna Laugh at You."
Yeah,
because it's an incredible. Other than Lunch Lady Land and the Hanukkah song, it is an incredibly dirty album.
Dirty.
Every song, every track on
Is that the one with all the beatings of the high school science teacher and the beatings, or is that the next?
That might be the next one.
They're both
It was
good.
Almost every
Toll Booth
track
Willie?
on the first Adam Sandler CD is just incredibly graphic sex jokes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
they were great.
So my parents had no problem with me having music that had some swears. They didn't care. But I knew like if I was going to bring my CD player and I went to a lot of different churches throughout my life, and I knew like, okay, this church or this youth group or this youth retreat, I better not bring certain CDs. So that was why it was always nice for me to have Christian punk and regular punk. Like I had
leave
both.
the blank at home.
Yeah, because I'm like, okay, exactly. I leave the blank at home, but I can bring my Relient CDs to this youth retreat. Well, I was like, okay, I think I'm safe to bring my They Might Be Giants Severe Tire Damage to this youth group because there's no swears, and this particular youth group is not like it has to not, because that pastor loved the Dust Brothers, so I was like,
okay.
I was like, yeah, I guess because they didn't have no wait, I mean,
Beck and stuff like that. It's not the dirtiest stuff, but it's.
So I was like, okay, I'll be all right with this, and then I put it on like after youth group was over. I put it on the sound system in the church. And I got to listen to Dr. Worm like on these church speakers in this giant church room, and I'm like, this sounds awesome. And then the pastor was like, what is this? And like everyone at church at youth group that night got into the song Dr. Worm.
Hell yeah.
And I knew.
Hell yeah.
And then the pastor asked me, he's like, they don't swear, do they? And I'm like, no. And I knew like, okay, well, don't go buy Apollo 18. I didn't say this to him.
Yeah,
because it has son of a bitch in it.
Second track. I mean, even Dig My Grave. I mean, that's stuff that like they might be like, what is this song about? The topical, like Dr. Worm. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. What's going on over there?
Where our computer was about to die, so Jessica ran to get the charger.
So hey, I was
anyway.
wondering if I could sing you a little rendition of a song that you'll know.
Sure, because on your podcast, we just want to let everyone know, definitely go listen to our episode with Greg on his podcast.
Yes.
And if you don't want to listen to the whole thing, please go listen to the end of it. You have to. I don't want to say what it is, but go listen to the end.
No, listen to the whole thing or Blue Apron won't pay me. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so here's one. So get your bleep button ready.
Okay.
Piss, fucker, motherfucker, smart turd, and twat. I your mom. There you go.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite Relient K song.
Yep.
I downloaded on Napster. It said Napster Family Reunion. I mean, it said Relient K.
Covered it.
Family Reunion. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. This, to the topic at hand, this is a good cover. I like it, and like I said, I have no problem with them keeping the vibe the same because it's one of my favorite songs. I mean, I feel like with a cover, either you need to stay fairly faithful, but make it your own. You got to make it sound like your band, or make it really bizarre.
Right.
Those are like my two favorite ways. Well, yeah, you guys do a cover section, I do a cover section of whatever episode we're doing, and it's like you just find a bunch of acoustic guitar covers, and I just narrow it down to one because I'm like, that's enough.
Yeah.
Here's a ukulele cover. Oh, here's a piano cover. Like, it's like, but like a full band. Like, these are like legit covers. This is a lot of work doing. I mean, once you get live drums involved, I mean, I know how to record drums, and that just ups the ante by a ton. If there's no drums on the track, it's like, that's easy. That's like, what's the point? Mm-hmm. No, it's not what's the point, but like, like this is a legit covers album. It's not just like, Matt was like, yeah, I'll just go solo, guys. I'll just record this in a day, right?
There must be
I'll
solo.
just record the whole album in a day.
There must be solo covers of Dr. Worm, but I'm like, oh, would I even want to hear that? There must be like some guy in his bedroom just singing Dr. Worm on his guitar by himself.
Well, it's like I said, like when Kara and I did that, like it was the third episode that I'd ever taped, and I hadn't even aired the first episode when we recorded it, so there was like no feedback on it, like no fan feedback or anything. No one was listening at the time anyway. And so, there were so many covers. We ended up just finding some on the fly because I'm like, here's a couple. And then we're like, we still got time to kill. The baby's asleep. And we're like, well, let's just see what else we got. So, like, I think I'd already found the Relient K one. And I'm like, that's some sort of Christian-y band, right? Oh, this is good. And then, like, we find, like, an acapella one. There's a really good acapella one. There were all these great covers. I think we played one, like, guitar cover of it. And it really wasn't that good. And we're like, there were plenty. It's a song that is so obscure, according to Relient K's drummer, that there were a bajillion covers of it, including theirs.
Yeah. I did look into it. I was like, because when it comes to us doing the cover album songs, we're like, okay, we're probably not going to look for covers of the cover. Because, maybe there might be guitar covers, which we don't really talk about because it's just a guy in their bedroom playing along to the song. It's like, what do you talk about?
That's not a cover. If you play along, if the original song is playing in the background,
right.
I've covered thousands of songs.
Exactly.
That's what I did in college. I would put on Saves the Day Through Being Cool and just play along with the entire thing.
Yeah. Somehow,
I didn't consider them covers.
Drum cover, guitar cover, that got stuck in the vernacular, but it's not true.
It's
those are not covers.
It's a play along. It should be called like play along.
Yeah, if you just muted it and just played it, like, even if, like, they just put it on earbuds and we're playing along, as long as I can't hear the original, I'd call it a cover.
Right.
Yeah.
Occasionally.
But, yeah.
I check out some of the guitar covers on any given episode because I'm like, once in a while, someone's tone or maybe they're playing the key slightly wrong, and it will add a little extra to the song. And I'm like, just listen to this version. I'm like, just listen with
or like,
extra.
If they, like, went off on it. I think, so there's this guy that does, like, he's just a bass player that likes to learn all these songs. Like, They Might Be Giant songs have really killer bass parts for the most part. And so he will, a new album will come out, and he'll do a bass cover of every single song, which is just him playing along with it, just on bass. He doesn't sing. It's just the bass. And he's an excellent bass player. And he'll put on YouTube, he'll have the one with the audio and then the one that's just the bass, which I think is more like, oh, hey, if you're a bass player, watch this, I figured it out. You can watch my hands and play it, like almost like a tutorial kind of thing more. But like the only time I ever played one of his videos on an episode of mine was a song where the original They Might Be Giants track did not have bass guitar in it at all. So he made up a bass part
I think
to go in it. Yeah, I'm blanking out what song it is. I can't remember.
Right.
But yeah, so it was a song that didn't have bass. So even though he was playing along with the original, he wasn't playing along with Danny Weinkauf. He was making up a thing.
Right.
So I'm like, yeah, that I'll play.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you drummed along with a song that didn't have drums,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
sure, I'd play that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if any Relient K song doesn't have drums or bass or guitar. It may be something on Collapsible Lung because it's their
Perhaps.
pop album.
Yeah.
Hey, if you get to a song that you can't find any cover, even if I don't know the song, just let me know.
Okay.
Maybe if I have time to cover it.
Oh, yeah, we have done that.
shoot
The
something.
thing you were talking about, we've done that as well. We've once in a while.
Shout out, yeah.
Yeah, shout out, like, please, anyone, send us a cover. And the only time, the last episode we recorded, the one that just came out before we recorded this, was a song on their demo that I was like, there's no covers. It was way too late for me to ask anybody. Because typically when we ask, it still takes a week or two. We have to, like, get the word out. We actually announce our episodes.
Right.
Like, we try to announce our episodes 3 weeks at a time, so people can send us voicemails and stuff ahead of time. I was like,
that's good.
Yeah, I was like, most other pretty much any other song by song podcast tries to like leave it as a surprise. I'm like, well, let's make our thing that it's not a surprise. At least,
there's definitely good things about that. Yeah, but if there's one like, or if there's one where it's like all you can find are acoustic guitar covers, pitch it to me and I'll do it like on like a $1 Yamaha keyboard with like a little rinky drum machine or something stupid. I'll kick out something dumb that you can make fun of.
Okay.
I'll use like a pseudonym or something. That'll be funny. We'll do it as a gag, or I could do a real one if there's really one that you want me to do.
Okay.
Well,
I'll think about it.
Especially because now I'm at home all friggin' day.
I should just send you a list of
B-Rad.
Oh yeah.
There were none of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. The song we did last
B-Rad.
week, it was called B-Rad, and I picked it because I'm like, oh, it sounds like something we need in the world right now. B-Rad. Well, it turned out it was like an ironic title, and it's about people who aren't rad. I was like,
oh, I thought it was about a guy named Brad.
Yeah.
B-Rad. B-Rad. The Untimely Death of Brad.
Oh, that's right.
Five Iron Frenzy song. Yeah. I love that EP. That's so good. Five Iron Frenzy rules. I told you my art. Yeah, I mentioned it on the crossover, but yeah, Lauren, Miss Walton, our art teacher, made me a Relient K playlist. And yeah, because I told her, I'm like, yeah, I've heard a couple songs, and I mean, the one I've heard the most is the Dr. Worm cover for obvious reasons.
Did you find that playlist? Because last on your show, you weren't able to find the playlist.
Okay.
Will you find it
I
this
can.
time?
I can. Yeah. See, the problem is like when you share. Like, did I forget to follow it? She shared it with me, and I forgot to hit follow, and now it's not popping up. Anyway, she actually just texted me about something. Like, send me a link to that again. But yeah, it did have a lot of ones you mentioned because I did end up finding it, and then now I can't find it again. But it was a good, like I told her, just like 10, like distill it to like 10 songs. Because, you know, a band that has a million songs, like if I was going to introduce someone to They Might Be Giants,
right,
I wouldn't be like, here's a 4-hour playlist. Like,
yeah,
you got to like encapsulate the band.
right.
So these guys have a lot of songs. They don't have They Might Be Giant a lot of songs, but you wouldn't be like, well, just go listen to everything. Be like, I don't have that kind of time. I want to find out if I like this band. Give me the greatest hits, you know,
right,
distill it. And yeah, it was good. And yeah, and then we talked about Five Iron Frenzy. So she let me hear that song that they wrote about Five Iron Frenzy. So yeah, I'm digging it. I'm gonna go listen to this whole covers album because it's some good selections of songs to cover. Yeah.
Well, next time we cover this album, we'll be doing Baby.
Yep.
So you can sign up for our Patreon.
Yeah.
And you can
yeah.
Because I am on your Patreon.
It's only fair. Now I've.
This whole thing about having you on our show was actually just a long con to get you
to get me to
sign
give
up
you
for our
$5.
Patreon. And they just kind of cancel each other out, like whatever money.
It worked.
Actually, the only winner is Patreon because technically
the
money I send you gets plucked by Patreon, and the money you would send us would also get plucked by Patreon.
You know, it's a really solid site. You know, it's very well. Like, it looks clean. It operates well. I have no qualms about that. They've got them, they're not filling it full of ads for everybody. Right. So,
and I
it makes
appreciate
sense.
that
I'm
it's
fine
like
with it.
basically free. This is, I haven't mentioned this, but someone asked me in my real life, like they were thinking about starting a Patreon. I'm like, just go start it because there's no startup fees. There's no monthly commitment. You either have followers and they're paying you and they pay Patreon, or you don't. You know what I mean? There's no loss. So if anyone out there is thinking of starting a Patreon, you can literally just go start it, and it's not going to cost you anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do it. That's the main message of this episode. Just like how Dr. Worm.
I just did it. Let's see, PayPal. There you go. There you go, guys. I'm a patron now.
Oh, you are? Oh, nice.
Yeah. This might be a podcast. It's a patron of Sadie Hawkins Pod.
Well,
so now we're officially...
since you are,
you need my address? What are you sending me? Sweet swag.
Well, that's right. You're gonna get some stickers. I need to ask you about T-shirt advice and stuff because all we were able to figure out right now is stickers. I've never produced. You're gonna have anyone produce T-shirts ever.
Yeah, definitely. You're gonna have 2 new sticker designs coming your way pretty soon.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, we'll send you stickers, and as long as we're advertising, so everyone out there listening can remember. And I need to explain this to Greg. This is an awful book.
What?
That has nothing. That Relient K the truth is Relient K themselves had nothing to do with this book. Basically, their copyright was licensed for this awful relationship book that is complete fluff and nothing. And we're going chapter by chapter through it. Because
is it about them at all?
No, it's not. It's not about them at all.
That's just their picture was used?
Yeah, basically it's just like a really
and their song titles and their pictures are inside each chapter.
So why them?
I don't know. I just it was something to sell, I guess. We don't know
what's the title again? The Complex?
It's the complex infrastructure known as the female mind. It's a reference to their song. It's a reference to their song "Mood Rings," which is which is a top 5 popular song. It's a song that people know. But
is that line sung sarcastically?
Is what?
Is that line sung sarcastically, or what's the context? I don't know.
Well, the context of "Mood Rings" is it's a now problematic pop punk.
Oh yeah, you mentioned
this. It's a now problematic pop punk song about how girls are just too hard to understand. What's their problem?
Sure.
And when you listen to it, it is the thing is there are so many other pop punk bands that blame the girls heavily. Why don't you love me? What's wrong with you?
In the 90s, yeah. I'm so nice. I'm the nice guy, and that's why I'm calling you out in this popular song.
Mood Rings.
I'm so nice.
Mood Rings is still problematic, but at least it's not. It's not I don't know. We'll get to it someday. No, we're doing that song for episode 50.
Yeah, we're doing it pretty soon.
Do they still play it live?
Oh, they do. Yeah. I'm sure if it was. That's the thing. Is it is problematic, but it's not I'm sure it could hurt some people, but it's not really hurtful.
Yeah.
It's just you're a teenager, you don't understand why is this girl mean to me sometimes and nice to me sometimes. It's because she's a human and not just how humans act. But
must be your time of the month.
Right. Well, they don't say that. So then this book exists where I don't know who wrote it. We've never searched the actual history, the true history. There's a fictional history on top of the existence of this book about Relient K wrote you this book about blah. No, this ghostwriter wrote this awful relationship book about understanding girls, but it's all surface level garbage that's not really about what girls are like at all. So you'll get to hear us go through, but you can listen to us talk about it.
Yeah.
And maybe learn
I can't wait to get some
girls.
stickers. Now, where am I going to put these stickers? I'm already thinking about it. I want a sticker of your dog.
Oh, that's a good idea.
The patron.
Yeah, we should make April
we should.
People love animals and babies. Yeah. So, when the podcast t-shirts came out, I put, a lady's small on my toddler.
Right.
And people loved the shit out of it.
Yeah.
I got to swear more. I forgot to swear. Fucking I forgot to fucking swear. Bleep, 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 bleep. Yo, me and Bobby, we was walking down the street. Okay, I'll stop now.
That's the best bleeping song ever.
Yeah, that was the whole idea. Just bleep stuff that I said that wasn't a swear.
Yeah. Well, was there anything else you wanted to mention about Dr. Worm or anything?
Dr. Worm?
Yeah, look, we've been talking for an hour, and we talked for about half an hour before you joined, so I think we're getting there. Anything? So tell
Yeah,
everyone.
it was a good choice. It was a good choice, and they did a good job with it. So
Yeah.
I dig it, and I'm gonna go listen to that whole covers album.
So let everyone know.
Yes.
Let everyone know what's your podcast and where they can find it. And you have a
Oh boy, I'll tell you, I've done so few episodes, I can't even remember anything about it. So, this might be a podcast. We just released episode 75. I've recorded all the way to 90. This is 90. So
You're so much
there's a bunch
better
of
than
Patreon
us, 'cause
episodes.
we sometimes record right before we post.
It's just like, right now, like I've got, what am I gonna, what am I doing? Like when the baby's asleep and my wife is like, I got to read some stuff for class tomorrow. What? And since I have a different guest on every episode, I mean, like I think I told you, it's like I could be like, oh, let's see, like, well, Kara's tennis is canceled now for the time being, but like, okay, every Thursday, 7:30, Kara plays tennis, baby's asleep, I'm home by myself. Who can record? And I'll be like, hey, blah 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 blah. I want to talk about this song. Can you record on Thursday at 7:30? No. Okay, next person. Well, can you record next Thursday? Yes. Okay, sold. And then I'll just plow through a bunch of them, and then in the summer I can kind of take it easy and just edit. So this might be a podcast.com. This might be a podcast.bandcamp.com is where you can find a crap load of covers of They Might Be Giants songs. Patreon.com/this might be a podcast if you listen to it and you want to hear even more. But I've had a lot of cool guests on. Yeah, Mike Park of Asian Man Records, Colin Clive of Mustard Plug. What other, dorky bands that Relient K fans would like? We love ska, pop punk. They Might Be Giants are dorky bands, so that all makes sense. I've had Francis Quinlan from Hop Along, John O'Neill, the Mountain Goats. Yeah, and then the one I just put out was with my first hip-hop artist as a guest, which opened Mike Eagle. Talked about Weep Day, so go listen to that. So thanks, guys, for having me on. That was this is fun. I like being on other people's podcasts.
You've had a lot of.
You have to edit it.
I know. I was gonna say you've had a lot of prestigious guests, and we've just had you. So.
Yep.
So, are you saying I'm not prestigious? Is that what that tone was?
No, I'm saying you've had a lot of prestigious guests, and we've had one prestigious guest.
Yeah. I'm so famous now. No, it's funny. I'm excited to talk to Justin McElroy because I'm like, how did you get famous as a podcaster? How does that work? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fun, though. You guys are having fun, though, yeah?
Yeah.
Spending quality time.
Yeah.
Husband and wife.
Yeah.
It's adorable.
Yeah.
It's cute. It's funny. That Dr. Worm episode, people are like, you and your wife had really good chemistry. I'm like, we've been married for over a decade, so I hope so. It's not like Ozark where they just hate each other and spy on each other and plan conniving things. If you guys don't watch that wouldn't make any sense.
No, it keeps trying to get us to. Netflix keeps trying to get us to watch that.
Yeah.
So maybe
it's so good.
Okay.
All right.
So
Well, then we'll check
good.
that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Your fans will get it. Your cooler fans have watched Ozark.
All right. Well, thanks. Thank you, Greg, for being on.
Of course. I'm gonna go do a Patreon stream about the Beach Boys for some reason.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Yeah, if you didn't see my tweet, I'm like, I'm going to start doing, when I have extra time on my hands, I'm just going to do solo pods about non-They Might Be Giants stuff. So I'm going to talk about good vibrations for an hour on a live stream. So
Relient K is hugely influenced by the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
Not to the extent that...
Yeah, those harmonies.
Yeah, the harmonies. Yeah. Yep. So, whoa. Oh.
There we go.
Oh,
Sorry.
someone's calling.
All
Gotta
right.
hang up.
Just wake up. 100 minutes of love.